Edit.
Did I start recording, guys?
Very subtle.
Hey, Nicholas, you made it. I'm glad.
Let's hope the internet holds out this time.
Morning, Jason, Marco, Thomas, Omer.
Hey,
Hey,
good day.
We're going to leave it room open for about 5 more minutes. Last week, we had a lot of people try and jump in once we started. So
a good idea.
And this week you get to see my beautiful face.
perfect.
The luxury of media-rich transmissions. Honestly, you communicate so much more clearly when you can tell whether a person is smiling at your little joke or something, you know, like it's hard to speak and have no receptivity with the facial expressions. You know,
That's true.
Plus, someone last week made a good point that if you're going to be intimately involved in this process, it's good to be able to show your face. It's like KYC. It shows who you are. Yeah. So, and it's not too hot this week, so I don't have my top off.
Well, at least till we get those avatars who can appear for us.
That is one way of doing it. Absolutely.
they're fun. The animated replacements, like
Yeah,
very cartoon.
when they get good.
Yeah, and when we're in the breakout rooms, it's yeah, I've kind of said it's mandatory for the consensus process for everyone to turn on the on your camera. So you can kind of wait till we get into, you know, put on your shirt once we get in the breakout room. Well, I'll leave the room open for 5 minutes, but I can just share my screen and go over the agenda for the day. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. You are in the weekly meetup, and our mission for the weekly meetup is to practice fractal governance. And if you're new to fractal governance, we've been following along with Dan Larimer and kind of initiated with his book, More Equal Animals. And there's a whole governance blockchain going to be launched fairly soon. The Genesis Fractally group meets every Saturday at 1600 hours. And last week, they announced that they're close to releasing a couple more UI and a couple more details in weeks to come. And our mission with the alien worlds is for us to practice this mission, break out into groups. Well, here, I'll just go through the agenda. So we're kind of in our pre-meeting, but when you get into the breakout room, what happens is that we're randomly sorted into rooms. I know some of us haven't been in rooms together yet, so it doesn't seem random, but Zoom breaks us into rooms of 5 and 6 people. And if you can decide on someone to kind of facilitate the meeting, and then someone just to watch the clock, because we only have an hour for our kind of introductions, and our introductions, maybe about 3-4 minutes each. Let people know what you're passionate about. If you're new to Alien Worlds, that's not a problem. Everyone's rewarded for just practicing this governance process. And then after the introduction, we break out into breakout rooms. And what we're doing is letting people know what we contributed. And our contributions include what you've contributed to Alien Worlds. So that could be playing the game, you could be doing support, maybe raising awareness, inviting people to this meeting. And we're also rewarding, we have a lot of kind of governance gurus here that we're also rewarding if you really haven't been too active in alien worlds. What have you been active in the last week or up to now in governance? So we're kind of fusing and kind of joining two worlds, the governance world and alien worlds. And if we're successful, we'll be able to show a lot of more of the alien worlds community, especially with elections coming up soon. Just another way to come to consensus. So in that breakout room, you're going to be deciding who you think gave the most contributions. And because it's a little bit fuzzy, contributions to alien worlds and governance, it's not an exact science. You're not rating the individuals at all, so don't take it personally. And yeah, that's kind of the exercise. So for these, it might be a little difficult, but what we've been doing so far is counting down, kind of giving a 3, 2, 1, and everyone placing who they think contributed the most in the chat. And then if you have consensus, just go on to the next person. And if not, please open up to discussion and ask people why they voted, ask the people what they're passionate about. And the consensus is 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 5 in each room. And once we're done the consensus process, we'll just come back to the main session. And then feel free, we have a little bit more time to discuss. We're going to leave the room open. It kind of goes into a general conversation in our KROWN call after that. I think that's it. I guess I'll get back to this main page with you all, and I'll just give everyone recording abilities. So whoever's not in my room, if you're able to record your breakout room, that'd be really appreciated. Is there any question? There's a couple new people with us. You're in great hands. We have a couple people that have been through this process before, and we've all been new here once. So if you're brand new, just please explain, your passion, why you came to the meeting. And yeah, I'm glad you're up for the challenge of going through fractal governance. Any questions, comments, anything I missed?
Do you still have, could you put that post in the chat where it gives a general overview of the process?
For sure. Yeah. Give me a second. I can do that. About a month ago, we applied for a grant through Alien Worlds through Galactic Hubs. And this week, they just announced that some grants were approved. So super exciting. We've got approved for 100,000 trillium for our adventures. So super exciting. That's going to be divided into prizes. So the 100% of all the trillium is going back to participants. And last week, I've just been traveling, so forgive me. I'm going to be sending out the NFTs from last week and all the awards for last week just after the meeting here. So I'm thinking we give this an hour. Does anyone have a hard stop that they'll have to leave before an hour? Marco?
Maybe.
All right. Well,
I
good.
do have hard stuff. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I have only until the next full hour. So
Full hour? Okay. So till about quarter after or so?
no, I just until the next full hour.
Gotcha. Okay.
So a little bit less than 45 minutes.
Great. Well, I'm going to just, I know let's see, we have 3, 6, 9, 11. So a room of 6 and a room of 5, maybe. Let's see, can we do smaller rooms? Not really. Okay, well, I'm going to break us into 2 rooms. David, maybe if we're coming close, if you guys are able to get to consensus, and then the remaining people in your room, I think if everyone is not completely done, but you get your consensus in, that might be just perfectly fine. And I'll give a little bit of a 1 minute notice when we get back here. And maybe we'll try for, we've been able to go through for about 50 minutes. So how about 10 after the hour? Right.
I see 10 and then 10 till, do we have 11?
Yeah, I've got about 20 past the hour here. So maybe let's go for 50 minutes. So it'd be 10 past the next hour.
Oh no, I see 10 in the room.
Oh, 10 in the room.
Five.
Thank you.
And I'm good until the
Two,
top
three.
of the hour too.
7, 8, 9, 10. I do. You're exactly right. So we'll break into 2 rooms of 5. Perfect. Thank you. All right, guys. We'll have some fun. I'll see you guys back here in 50 minutes. I'll find our breakout room here. All right. See you in a bit. Whoops. Maybe not. Go back.
Here we go. Engage hyperdrive.
Yeah.
Make
See you
us
on the
go.
other side of the portal. All right. Hey, Jason, Eric. How do you say your name? Okeki? All right. Well, I'm going to, is anybody volunteer to moderate?
I'll volunteer to moderate.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jason. I'll give kind of a 3-minute. Thanks, Eric, for putting up the timer. I'll give everyone kind of a soft nudge in the chat when you're at about 3 minutes or so.
And that's 45 minutes, so I put a 5-minute buffer in there.
That's awesome. Appreciate it. All right. Anyone want to kick it off?
So are we doing general introductions, then contribution reports, then ranking? Is that the order
Yeah.
we're doing?
Yeah, I think we kind of split it up.
So when do we want to start with the contribution reports, just so we go for the timer?
Yeah. How about we give that's 3 times 5, 15 minutes for the introductions?
So when the countdown's down to 30, more or less, we start plus or minus the contribution reports.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right. I can kick it off if you want. It's a busy week. I did a little bit less on alien worlds than I usually do this week. I've been traveling a bit. One of the things we did was, Eric, thanks again. The Dr. Sharif kind of governing the metaverse was, really nice conversations, pretty high level. Second thing is just kind of following up with Alien Worlds. Like I mentioned, we were successful in getting the Trillium grant, so that's super exciting. And I've invited a few more people, so there's quite a few invites, and I'm excited to get a lot more people in. Starting next week, we're going to start interviewing. So it's not what I've done already, but just kind of set the stage in motion for next week to start interviewing people that are going for elections in Alien Worlds. And I thought, hey, let's interview them, see what their political promises are, and it'd be a good way to introduce fractal governments either when they get elected to kind of come to consensus in their own group, or maybe for their different teams or people to come together to kind of give a signal of what the community's looking for in leaders. So, and yeah, that's about it. My kind of weekly goals are also to get out the kind of prizes and NFTs, and I'm a tiny bit behind. So last week's are coming at the end of this meeting. So yeah, and I guess my name's Dwayne, just for introductions, passionate about governance. I've been in the blockchain space for a while, and I feel these governance practices are going to be important for us to recreating the new societies we want to see in the world. So that's why I'm here. I'll pass it on to Extra.
Hey guys, how's it going? I think I know most of you. So similar to Dwayne, when you got to send me like kind of what your proposal was. Similarly, we applied for one of the grants as well. And it looked like it's moving forward. It was kind of funny because they put up like that Medium post about like some of the details and so forth of the other projects, which was great. Before, at least before, like they notified us that like we were even going to be included in that, or like what the next steps were and so forth. So that was kind of weird, but anyway. Yeah, so again, like Dwayne, I've been in crypto for a long time. Yeah, I know I said this 3 weeks ago and said I wouldn't say it again, but I'm not sure I'm passionate about governance. But it seems to be a running joke, so I'll keep it going. So I meant to mention this in the main room, but I don't know if anybody saw it. But like there was a TED talk that came out last night about DAOs from the guy who put together City DAO, about kind of like what it was like and what DAOs are in general and so forth. And so when it gets to a TED talk, you know that it's starting to bubble up into like a different level of exposure, And there was an article, I forgot what magazine it was. I think it was in Forbes, about DAOs, maybe like 6 months ago. So certainly getting a lot more exposure at the moment, and I'm sure that's just going to continue to go, even bigger and so forth. So anyway, just wanted to mention that in case you didn't watch it. It was pretty interesting. He did actually a pretty good job. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Nice. Who do you want to pass it on?
Yeah, I'll turn over to Jason.
Sure. I mean, I'm not very well experienced in this industry. I don't put it on my resume that I've been in it for a long time. I'm pretty enthusiastic though. My project is called That Cafe, and we focus on gatherings. We focus on enthusiasm for the space, and that our proof of enthusiasm involves simple adoption competencies. In that when a person has an account that they're managing, their ability to manage their account is got friction in it. We know that crypto has this crazy trade-off of security and convenience, and that in order to have good security, a person needs a certain amount of enthusiasm as energy to get them through the friction of managing their account securely. And so that's where my focus has been with my meetup, Crypto Oasis. I host it every week on Thursday night. We usually have 5 or 6 people together, and all different expertise levels. People join who are like top brass programmers, and other people join who heard about it last week and they want to figure out if it's real or not, So I joke that I'm like a translator between technical jargon and human speak English. not that comes from a great degree of like developer capacity. It's just that I like people generally as a starting point. I like listening to people, and I can see the happiness in their face when they solve a problem for themselves. And so I think that governance is part of that. I mean, I am passionate about governance because I think that decision-making, it is a catalyst to everything else. It is the catalyst to everything else. You make up your mind first before you take the steps. And so, individually and organizationally, I do appreciate the dynamic that Extra and I have in our running joke about governance, whatever. But Fractally is a beautiful thing in the way that it transforms the nature of group decision making away from being a contest of force, where we know that in a group, when a group makes a decision together, all too often, the group made their decision with an internal contest of force, where, I mean, that's how groups fall apart. It destroys the group chemistry. And that doing these iterations of fractally governance has been extremely educational for us all. We've established something of a rapport in our group dynamic. We know what we're looking for, but I think I might be at overtime. So I'll leave that in my introduction for now. And obviously I'll pass it to Okiki. Am I saying that correctly?
Okay, good evening, everyone. I got to know about Fractally from Sir Conman. He introduced me to Fractally, and I'm pretty new in crypto. Just joined the crypto space in 2019, and I got to know about Alien Worlds. I think pretty much when it launched. So, and I work as a mode for Alien Worlds. I'm here to learn more, know more about governance, the whole DAO thing, knowing more about DAOs, how to run DAOs. And maybe, hopefully, I can participate or maybe run for a position in a DAO sometime in the future. And I've been trying to get people to know about Fractally too, to bring in more people. But I've not been having luck with that. So I think that's all from me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think the onboarding to Fractally, we're kind of early adopters. The Fractally blockchain is going to be launched in probably a month or so. And I think it'll be a lot easier to see some momentum and to bring people over to Fractally and explain it a bit easier. And everything we're kind of doing is a bonus. Right now, we're kind of mining consensus before their chains even launched. So you're an early adopter. And yeah, thank you for joining us.
And we'll teach. We go through these exercises. We're learning too. We're figuring out where its edges are and if it even works quite. We're finding that the timeline is a little bit difficult, but we'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, off to Eric.
So one of the things that makes me a little different is I've worked probably with more organizations and more different types of organizations all over the planet than most people have. I spent a couple decades in government, a decade in corporate and startup companies and nonprofits, helped start nonprofits. So here's what I know. I've seen massive amounts of dysfunction and resources not accomplishing anything and even accomplishing negative things. I've seen a lot of negative results, and the positive results all come when people are in alignment and go. And then all of a sudden this stuff that's impossible happens overnight, especially, in the startup world. So my passion has always been look at these complex things, figure out where the centers of gravity, how they're, and then getting people in there so they can actually take this over and do amazing things. That includes getting one program adopted in 3 years by the Secretary of the Air Force and moved into the Pentagon. And if anyone thinks 3 years is a long time at that level of government, then that's actually lightning fast. That's like the Flash going on there. So, the problem is how do you get those people and together? And one of the passions I've had is, I'm not a big fan of malls. I like going to a big box stores. I like Amazon. But on the other hand, I really like just sitting downtown. One of the great things about San Diego is we have so many of these little downtowns. They're all different. They're all like 5-10 minutes from each other. You can just go out there, sit outside. I love that kind of thing. And a lot of those places have asked me to come help them. Glendale, Watts in LA, and I haven't had much success. And the reason is because you can never get them together and agree. That's been the number one failure of these people that really want to do something for their community, and they've never been able to do it. And I'll sit down and say, well, the first thing we need to do is figure out who we are and why. And they go, well, no, I really just want results. Can't we just do an easy button, get customers or get happiness and peace, love, unicorns and rainbows? I said, no, the first thing we need to do is build that crystal clear, laser-like pictures of who we are and why it's important and what we want to do. In other words, the Z model says, come up with a vision, enroll people in that vision, get people working together and achieve the vision. And so that's the first thing, is you have to build essentially a virtual community, a virtual company, a virtual thing before you ever get there. And I find that that's the hardest place. So what do we need to do? You need to get people in there in a structure with governance that gets that flowing. So that's real passions. I live in a place with a little downtown, and it could be fantastic. And although it's nice, it's a fraction of what it could be, because nobody will get together and figure out what it is and why you should come here. We got art, we got wine, we got weather. Could be great.
Well, Eric, I don't know where to go with that. I mean, I almost want to just pick up the conversation and run with it, but we have to go to the next person, and you have to pick the next person.
I think we're done, aren't we?
Yeah.
Oh, background introductions?
Yeah, we're done for introductions, and we hit right at the 30-minute, which is what we were shooting for. So I brought it right to there and cut it off.
Exactly. Sorry, I misspoke. We're going to the next round. We're going to our
Specifically, what did we do last week? What are the specifics?
contribution reports for Alien World and Fractally. Is that parameter correct, Wayne? Is it? Yeah, for this fractal and for Alien Worlds, or for Fractally broadly?
I could be fractally broadly, to be honest, but yeah, if it's this fractal, or and then sometimes we stretch into just governance, but yeah, if we left it concise for what you've done for Alien Worlds and fractal governance, it'd be the clearest, I think.
And I will be taking notes on everybody, just so you know I do that. And I try and divide it into 3 categories. What did you do that has an immediate impact? What do you do for sharing this and enrolling and building it? And what do you do that may not have any impact for even a long time, but has a future? So I have to think of that specifically, because almost always we go urgent over important, and the future, people don't get credit. People that are building the future in organizations often, in fact, most often, don't get any credit. And there's some big things like what Extra is doing. There's some big foundation things that may not have an impact next week. When you look at what it could be in a year, it could be really big.
Absolutely right. I mean, economically speaking, in terms of wages and salaries and money as we have it, in the way that people get money, and we assume that we're assigning money correctly to the right reward for people who are contributing the most to the economy. But it's no mistake that being a good parent, nobody pays you for that. But being a good parent is like the make your economy.
Well, I would just say, not to go on to real shortly, if you look at our most important jobs, it's friend, coworker, family member, significant romantic partner, and we get like of all the training we put in, we put like 0 effort on that. Yet it's what we should be doing like 90% of our time, and we don't do anything for that. So just a thought. Anyway,
we're trying to solve those sorts of things, right? Because those imperfections, that's the opportunity. We're filling that void. But I think we should start with, go ahead. Sorry.
But the key is fractally can have an impact on what I just said. That's the only reason I brought it up.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. So I think we should go in the same order about how we did our introductions. We should go around
Sure.
the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go around the table.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, and kick it off. My contributions this week, I'm really intrigued on when Go Fractally goes live, what that means for our fractal. So I'll have clarification this Saturday, but I've been asking the questions of, if we were part of the Go Fractally Genesis group, if you have a subgroup under them, you bring your fractal respect over to that team. I'm keeping points on all the respect that we're getting in this group, but we're kind of pre-mining this blockchain, and I just want to see if, how what's the transition when we go to their blockchain and kind of the tokenomics and economics behind it. So it's something I've been putting some effort into. The other thing I've done this week is try and push a little bit more marketing. So we have had 10 more people join the general group, and that's been taking probably about 10 minutes per person. Just, thankfully they're coming into this kind of that UI of the Mighty Networks and engaging there and asking questions, what they have to do. So I've had a lot of people just kind of showing them to sign up with your Wax wallet, and just that we kind of have a hard stop on Thursdays when we get going to breakout rooms. And yeah, that's about it. Last week's one thing that was a little bit slower than I like to is just posting all the results and getting out. So usually I can report that I've given out all the rewards, but this week I'm a little bit slow on that. So I can't get any credit for that this week. And yeah, and that's about it. I will pass it on to Extra.
Thanks, Dwayne. So yeah, I guess I always have a mental block when we get to this part of the meeting about contributions. I mean, I think that as you guys kind of refer to, I think that the main contribution was kind of like what you guys can refer to, right? It was kind of a long-term play, right? Of kind of having the off ramps and so forth, and I think the grant is going to kind of change that to a degree, or at least enhance that, specifically related to Alien Worlds, because this first step is going to be like doing more Trillium-backed, NFTs is kind of a next step, before we get to silver with kind of what we said. So I'm not sure that's necessarily like any contribution at the moment, more than kind of what I've already been rewarded for in the past. In terms of governance, I don't think I've made a huge contribution. I mean, I did get a few more people that I've been talking to for a while to kind of like set up an Alien Worlds account and start like getting involved and so forth, with the kind of, baby step, maybe to Dwayne's point, right? Is that, or to Eric's point, right, about getting people kind of like involved in some level, right? And then the next step is to get them into, understanding what a DAO is and why fractally makes sense and some of those other things, right? So I kind of like more, long-term kind of finding out people that are interested in these sort of things, right? And then trying to start the conversation with them in order to get them kind of to where we are, right? Because I know that like it was probably over a year ago that Dwayne got me involved in Alien Worlds and so forth, and that led to our conversations about governance and DAOs and fractally and kind of the whole, and Eden and kind of all these different tentacles, if you will, that go out from there. So I know that's kind of I know for me it was kind of a long process, and I think it kind of is for everybody. So I know that isn't specifically about contributions, but I do think that that's kind of the way that it kind of has to work with something this early, is to kind of get people you already know that trust you to kind of talk about things, and maybe make the distinction between something like this and the the next big, shitcoin that you want them to put a bunch of money into. So I think Jason, I think you're next.
Sure, yeah. Thank you for that. This week I was on the podcast with Dwayne and with Eric, with Dr. Sharif for the Metaverse, for the World Talent Economy Forum. And that is a hop, skip, and a jump away from Alien Worlds, although maybe we can point to the pathway that connects us pretty easily, in that it's Metaverse first, and it's gaming and MetaFi. Our conversation actually extended into technologies of money and a little bit about regulatory compliance stuff, about like the legalities of media and advertising and gaming and even digital assets, as apart from a technology of money, but also as technology of money. And I've got 3 pages of notes from that. And this week I've been brewing up a bit of a brainstorm from those topics of discussion, just in preparation, because I assume we're probably doing this again next Monday. And I'm hoping that I'll have that finished and I'll send my notes out to Eric, and Eric will choose how to distribute them further. I mean, I'm not sure exactly who or how to send them around, but I'm probably going to workshop most of those ideas today in the way we always do. And that's, I mean, that and this, right? I actually had a thought about fractal governance in the way that people, maybe I'll share this for discussion after, but I'll just say this week I have been thinking about these things in the background while I go and do my chores. I like to let the ideas sort of marinate while I'm doing rudimentary tasks with my hands. And so in any given week, a topic tends to be prevalent in that process. And this week, it's mostly been about fractally. So I'm looking forward to today's discussion. And I think that we're in for a bit of a steep uphill in our adoption curve here. So that's it for me for this week. I'll pass it to OKP.
Okay. Once again, hello everyone. For this week, the only thing I've been successful with is onboarding people on Alien Worlds, helping them out, taking resources for them, helping with tools like starter tools for the newer people. And also, I've been trying to get people into Fractally with no success yet for now. I've not successfully onboarded anyone, but I know that definitely I'll get people that share the same views with me about DAOs and governance. I'll get them on board Fractally too. So that's all for me for this week.
Awesome. Thank you. Eric?
So I always try and learn new things. So this week, my learning was to actually figure out how to get another game, because I'm interested in how we can connect games through things like the Galactic Hub. So I figured I'd better have a game that we can do things to build things and move them between games. So I figured I needed a head start. So I bought a planet, which is cheap. That's why I did it. It was in Dark Galaxy. So I bought Planet Davin, and I started mining on somebody else's planet. And with the wax I had, that's about all I could do. But that's going on right now. But the idea is thinking, how can we bridge these games? And I needed something to understand what we might be able to bridge that I could do. We set up the World Talent Economic Forum. We did that, so I'm building a mind map of potential topics that I hope to release today or tomorrow and share. And extra if you'd like to play in that. too, you're welcome to come talk with us. We're doing it on Mondays at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 1500 UTC. So we're talking about doing a series with that.
Yeah, Eric, I'd like that. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I'm interested in that. When Jason mentioned it, I actually made a note of it just now.
I
To follow
will-
up with you guys.
I will try and remember. I
that.
think we're connected on Telegram. I will add you to the Alien Worlds Media Group, and I will send you the invitation when we get it. And I will also add you to the potential to add things to the mind map. So I'm building that. The second mind map, though, that I'm building is potential projects that we can do with WTE, which will probably be next week. You know, we could start a game. So I'm looking at actually getting those things we could really do. I had 2 conversations, didn't invite anybody to More Equal Animals this week. I've invited 22 people totally so far. Out of those, 8 of them have asked for the Go Fractally white paper. I shared 1 new person on that last week, and then I've invited 3 people to play in either Alien Worlds or Fractally, and I invited 1 more people last week. Part of this is Dwayne's already set up as a guest on Building the Metaverse podcast. So the first podcast is interviewing Dan Larimar on August 4th. Dwayne will be shortly after that, so get ready. In doing that, I did some work this week on setting up the Building the Metaverse store so that I can promote what everything's going. So whoever we interview, like extra, you're welcome to be interviewed. If you want a shirt or something, I mean, you can have the money for that. The shirt is just to help advertise the people that are playing. So we actually did some work on that. And I also did some work on the potential animation logo. I sent everybody here feedback. Dan Singay gave me feedback. So if anybody has feedback on this animation, I'm actually going out trying to get somebody to do the logo and animation for it. So love feedback on that. And turning to a real project, again, I talked to Sharif. We talked about the mind map. I'm also talking to Matt Langston today, see if he has any ideas about actually doing a real project, setting up a game or something with WTEF. We reviewed our workshop.games and asked how we can interface with Alien Worlds. We talked a little about our proposal to Saro about workshop.games doing training within Alien Worlds, making that. And I attended the intro to Alien Worlds on Monday, and we kind of onboarded Sharif a bit.
Awesome. All right.
So there are 2 ways to do this. This part, we need to decide it as a group quickly here. Should we all state our first, our greatest contributor, in that we rank order number 6, right? 6 points is the greatest number for the greatest contribution. And we can either just cast our vote by writing it and then discuss that after, or we can all speak in advance as to who we've got in mind and why.
Jason, I would go for just the voting first. I think that was a little more efficient.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Because I think if we get consensus quickly, if everybody has the same opinions, then I'm not sure, how much point there is to discussion there needs to be necessarily, right? Just to be efficient, especially since we only have 12 minutes left or something. So
we need to be efficient through this. So
yeah.
The second variable is whether or not we vote for ourselves, whether or not we're allowed to or should vote for ourselves.
My personal opinion on voting for yourself is usually, yes, I think you should express, and I think it's a good exercise for us to express if we think we put enough value out there. You can kind of understand where that person's coming from if they vote for themselves. And it's a good practice for us all to speak up for our contribution. So I would vote yes for voting for yourself.
So you include yourself in the rank order here. If you believe you're level 6, you write your own name. Whatever level you believe you belong at, you write your name in that level. And so
Yeah,
for
I think it made it easier too, Jason. When we had it a couple weeks ago, when you didn't vote for yourself, then we had every round there was one person, there was one outlier, right? And it wasn't necessarily technically consensus, if you will, right? Because there was always someone who, if they didn't vote for themselves, then there was always 4 out of 5 voting for that level, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's just like more realistic, if you will, right? Because if you were really voting, in a vote, you would almost certainly vote for yourself, in a private forum. Let's put it that way, right? So
that's true. That's true. In most votes, you do. You vote. You cast one vote, just like everybody else, and you're allowed to vote for yourself if you're a candidate, of course. So to level 6, then what we'll do is write in the chat the name of the person that you believe contributed the most to Alien Worlds in the past week. Okay. And sorry, 1 second. And would anybody need more time to write the name into the chat? We'll do a countdown if everybody's ready. Speak now if you need more time. And 3, 2, 1. Okay, we got
have consensus.
4 votes. Eric voted Dwayne. Eric, do you want to talk us into giving Dwayne level 6 or not? Would you rather change your vote, Eric? We do have consensus. We have 4 out of 5. But
I'm good with consensus. I still think it's Wayne, but that's okay.
yeah, no, there is some value assignment here, and the qualities of what Eric contributed and the qualities of what Dwayne contributed are not necessarily apples to apples. So it's hard to evaluate exactly what is the more valuable contribution. That's why we talked about it. But that was quick. So we can go to level 5 and we'll do the same thing. We'll write the name of the person in the chat who contributed second most this week. Level 5. Anyone need more time? Hearing none, I'll count down. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we have consensus again. 4 votes for Dwayne, 1 vote for Okeke. Dwayne, do you want to talk us into changing our votes?
I voted for Okeke because it was a straight linear, what he's done for Alien Worlds. And then I'm biased. I'm incentivized for growing this team and for other people to grow it as well. So listening to Okeke saying that he's actively promoting fractal governance and here on his first meeting, I thought those were some great contributions, and I'd like to give him a little bit extra praise to just reward him for coming in, because it's not easy starting a new habit coming into a group that you've never met before. So for us, we've all built the habit, and I'm doing this work anyways. So that's why I gave my vote to Okeke.
That makes sense. It was a comment that was sort of off the cuff, but it really had a long line of thought in it. But extra said about, I don't know if I get credit for this work that I signed up for like 3 months ago, but I did it. Like, I do it every week. So it's not a special contribution. I'm always sort of plowing the same field here. But yeah, it's like inviting new people is very direct impact. That's true. So fair point.
Well, onboarding too. That was what I wrote down for Okeke is onboarding. But then Dwayne did onboarding too. So that's what things that got on. Onboarding is really important.
Yeah. So we have a 4 out of 5. If one of us changed their votes, though, then we'd be stuck. So I mean, I think I'm going to keep my vote on Dwayne. I'll speak for myself on that, and I'll put it around the table. to, it's Extra and Eric both have to decide as well.
Dwayne,
If they're,
Yeah, I'd
And-
stick with Dwayne too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And okay, Keith, you're gonna stick with Dwayne for your vote for the second round, and then we'll go to
Sure.
level 4. I saw you nodding yes. We are still going to be on time, which is difficult. So level 4, write it in the chat. Anybody need more time? Hearing none, I'll count down 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we have to have a little discussion here because we're stuck on 3 votes and 2 votes. I'll share why I voted for okay. For the same reason Dwayne did, because of direct impact. Because I felt as though my personal contribution this week has a delayed impact, a deferred impact, or an indirect impact. So that's why I made up my mind. I'll leave it at that, and I'll ask OKK why you voted for me.
I think the impact you're making with your contributions are pretty much better than mine. So that's why I voted for you.
That makes sense. I mean, I appreciate that. What I do is difficult and only I can do it. I know.
I mean, I can speak to this. I can speak to why I voted for Jason. That'd be helpful, right? I think to me, while I appreciate and didn't really think about Dwayne's point about onboarding, right, for Okeki, I think it's a little bit a matter of scope, right? Is that, you know, getting people onboarded one by one certainly grows the community. There's no doubt about it, and there has to be that relationship, like I said earlier, to get people involved over the long period. But I think that, you know, you participating in the podcast and other you know, and the other meetings and so forth, you know, is more broadband, right? I think it casts like a wider net, if you will, of getting people who might come in through those kind of, let's call them tangential channels, and where you don't really know where that top of the funnel is going to be, you know, in some of those activities, right? More than a little more specific and a little more acute with onboarding, you know, people, you know, or a smaller group, right? And that was kind of my thinking. But you know, I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate what Dwayne said about the onboarding. So I guess it's a matter of what do you value more in onboarding, right? To a degree, right?
me-
And the potential that comes from it.
for me, Jason's impacts are more immediate because I need is that feedback he talked about to do the live stream shows, which we're doing Monday. So it's not a long term. The work he's done is helping us pick what we're going to talk about on Monday.
Well, no, but Eric, to that point, right? I mean, you know, and you don't know where that's going to go, right? I mean, that could be
You guys
own
have,
a way of getting people that aren't necessarily into it. So
No,
with-
but it's top of funnel stuff. So I think we need to get our funnel going. So when I looked at, here's that part, that's really good. So that,
yeah, I mean, that was the same analogy I had, was, you know, top of the funnel kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're on the same page there, Eric.
Jason and Eric have changed my mind on the funnel perspective, so I'm going to change my vote here.
Fair enough. So last vote for me is coming from OKK. Oh no, sorry. Last vote for OKK is coming from me. Is that right?
Well, I think
So-
we have consensus if Dwayne switches.
we have consensus. We have 4 or 5 Dwayne switches. So
Yeah, so Dwayne switched. I think we're good.
I'm happy to receive level 4. Thank you for that. And I guess we're ready to vote for level 3. So same thing, we'll write a name in the chat. Anybody need more time? Calling out for, as anyone needs more time in the chat, and hearing none, I'll count down 3, 2, 1. And okay, is so modest. You voted for extra. I mean, I think we saw this one coming, right? Somebody's been trying to advocate for OK since level 5. And extra, you know the joke, bud. You know the joke. I don't care about governance.
I will screw myself. I don't even know why I even go on this path every time, Jason. every time I make that joke, I end up on the bottom. And the one time that I totally rebuffed that joke and said that it was totally untrue, I got level 6. So clearly, like I need to learn the lesson of just shut the fuck up. Excuse my language, but
I don't know. I really wanted to push extra up more because I think it's more important to that. I think I think just where we are right now, I think onboarding is really one of the most important things.
Right.
Just at the moment.
Well, hopefully, Eric, that we can continue. My team and I continue to move forward and do more things, and so in the future, it'll be more immediate, right? And
Well, what I'm saying is, if we had 3 groups today, if we had 3 groups instead of 2, I would have bumped you up. I think we need 3 as a baseline, so we get to at least 3 groups showing up in short order.
And
So I think just timing, that's kind of there. But I think if our group had been more, I would have taken what you're done and boosted up, because I think it's really important for the future.
Well, thank you, Eric. I appreciate that, and that's very encouraging. Well, and that does kind of dovetail with onboarding, right? If we had more people in the group, then we would have had 3. If we had more people in the total group, we would have had 3 rooms instead of 2, right? So
yeah, so I'm talking about recruiting and onboarding is a little more important
at the moment. Yes.
The second thing is getting people rewards. So that's why I voted for Dwayne, because he went and got that grant, which keeps people excited and interested when we're here. So, it's talking about it, getting people in, getting them started and keeping them interested is kind of where the focus is, just where we are right now. But I think once we get 3 people and we get that keeping going, then I think your contributions bump up.
So
Yeah.
Eric, to that point, right? I mean, I got a grant. And I promoted the grant on Twitter and Discord and a whole bunch of other places.
It?
Yeah, well, I got it the same way Dwayne did. Dwayne and I are in the same position of getting got through the first a level of into the development level grant.
Cool.
So,
I misunderstood.
Yeah.
I thought you were applying for a grant and you were getting Dwayne's input on how his works so you could make your work. So I misunderstood.
Oh no, Dwayne and I got the same thing. So maybe I should have made that clear in my
Yes. I didn't understand the impact. I didn't understand.
Seems to be my downfall is I joke about I'm not passionate about governance and I don't explain my contributions.
Yeah, that
because
was
it's kind of the same sort of thing when we built when my partner built the backing for the Ƒractal NFTs that Dwayne is doing. I never mentioned it as part of my contributions, and again that week I was at the bottom. So it seems like
that week I would have pushed you up because I got that there. This was like last week. So what do you know? If you look overall, then I think it's higher up, obviously. But I was just looking at last week.
No, my point is I need to take the lessons, right?
Yeah.
I need to take the lessons if I keep getting pushed down to the bottom. The week
you need to get Steve on. You need a better spokesman.
I know a guy who loves that. He's brilliant, okay? But he communicates, his problem is that he communicates he uses the correct word for everything. He is functionally disabled from using slang or sounding cool at any time. I don't know what his deal is. He just seems to be completely unable to tune in to his audience and know what they need to hear. Because when somebody's listening to you, they got a question in their mind. They're trying to figure you out. They're trying to listen to you and figure out, like, what is this person telling me? They got a question in their mind. They're waiting for their answer. And my friend, who is brilliant, nothing short of it, for some reason, never connects to his audience. He just does not connect to give them the answer that they're begging for, that they need to know. He talks about something else instead, and he loses them. He loses their attention. And it's true. We have a very precious 3 minutes here to talk about what we did last week. And I completely missed the cue that you succeeded in getting that grant. I thought that it's a ball that's up in the air.
I was expecting when it comes in the next week or the week after that, we were all gonna go boost up. Yay. And I understand that too, because when I was in the military, constantly what I got was my biggest feedback for me is I didn't promote myself enough. That was the feedback I got all the time. And my bosses said, look, I ranked you high because I work with you, but if I didn't work with you so closely, you would be lost. So for me, it's a conscious effort to try and do that because it's not my nature. I'd rather talk about, oh, how are we going to get people on board? Oh, let's do this.
Yeah, self-promotion is not exactly my
No.
my strong point either, which is probably why I don't participate in like social media or any of that sort of stuff.
And voting for myself, ouch. That hurts. Mere thought of that hurts me.
Yeah, well, so anyway, so I'll, just like it happened with building the stuff for Dwayne, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Next week I'll be sure to bring that up my contributions, and maybe I'll get credit next week instead.
That being said, I did get that contribution. I rated, in my mind, I was rating that really high that week.
I'm just gonna start voting for myself level 6 every week, and just everybody can argue with me. And then, they can tell me why I don't deserve it to my face.
Well, you give yourself more airtime that way, right? You put yourself in the discussion.
No, of course, no, definitely, yeah, no, very good point, Jason. No, it's true. So anyway, I think we're going back to the main room. So
you bet. I'll see you guys back there.
Welcome back, everyone.
I'm gonna have to jump off probably.
All right. We have some stragglers. We'll wait a second for everyone to get back in the room.
I think Mackin had to leave.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. How was it?
That was really interesting. Our group had difficulty reaching consensus at some points, and there was some interesting opinions about whether or not you should be allowed to vote for yourself, and if indeed you did vote for yourself, and you were the only one doing so, how that would be perceived by the rest of the group. It was quite an interesting, fluid conversation. However, we did allow voting for ourselves, and I think it went pretty smoothly.
I think one of the challenges in voting for yourself is we've got people like Extra and I who don't like doing it, and we have other people that really like doing that. And there is a tendency to, on some hand, to undervalue your work, but there's also a tendency to overvalue, and it comes from the test that if I gave this cup to, if I asked anybody what the value of this cup is, and then I gave it to them, immediately the value goes up because it's your cup. So if you know, your house, you know, your computer's worth more because it's yours. Your house is worth more than an exact duplicate of your house because it's your house. So it's an interesting dynamic that we're fighting and trying to figure out how to do this.
Yeah, I think as the groups grow over time, that's going to be an interesting challenge to navigate. Obviously, if someone's coming in and voting for themselves every time, each week, maybe they're a little overzealous. I know Jason might have some interesting words on that fact. Like he said some things on it before, whereas I've usually taken a passive approach to it, but this time I pushed for myself because I believed that what I was doing was important, and that's the only reason. But it's something that someone could come in and abuse.
Well, one thing that's helped me is I have a format for my contribution reports. I don't know if it's the right one, but I'm like, okay, what outcomes are we trying to do? What did I do specifically to fit the outcome? So rather than rating, you know, here's what I did, I at least try in order to do that, to think, okay, here's what got us further the outcome. I think our biggest challenge is we don't know what our outcomes we're trying to get is. I mean, they're really broad. You know, and people have outcomes in different ways. Is it a marketing outcome, a software development outcome like KROWN Man you're doing with your tools? Is it like infrastructure stuff like Extra's doing? So, you know, that's one of the problems is we have different types of outcomes, and saying, well, is the marketing or the development or the NFT, is that more valuable? We don't know. So you know, in the university world, we try and create rubrics which say, how are we thinking about this? And I have a rubric I use to evaluate everybody else. I don't know that it's that good. And I have a rubric I use for making my contribution reports.
Would you be comfortable
It's totally
sharing that, Eric?
Would
you be comfortable sharing that?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's very simple. I mean, all I say is, what did I learn? Because what do I need to learn to be a good member? So for myself, I said, what I actively go try and learn something, but not just in general. I say, what do we need to do? What do I need to learn? Where did I get that? So here's how I learn this. So, you know, Dwayne was talking about last week, how do we blend games together? So I said, oh, you know, I learned some of that from my work in Alien Worlds with Dakoko when they were developing the Galactic Hub, but I said, I don't know anything about games. So I said, how do I learn that? So I went and got a planet and played a game. So that was specifically to do that. So what do I need to learn, and what am I doing to learning? Because I think that's important for people too, to become better. I think if you make yourself, that's a contribution to everything. The other thing I do on myself is I say, well, what did I do to share this? And then what did I do that actually builds something that makes some different, that, you know, near term, and I kind of break it up near term and future term. And when you were all talking, I have your names, and then underneath the first part, I said, what did you do that might have an immediate impact? And then I said, what did you do to share? And what did you do you know, to build our team, so to speak, the people part? And then the other thing is, what do you do for the future? Like for you, Extra, I, you know, nailed the future, said, oh, that's big. I misunderstand. I should have done it more on on the impact part. I put it the wrong column. But
well, I think that's why I asked if you could share that, because I mean, for me, like, I didn't think about sharing at all as part of my contribution, right? And
yes,
so
building this team doesn't work unless it grows. So team growth to me is a critical part of our mission. Now, we haven't defined that, so I'm just talking about what I put out there, and I'm amenable to change it. I'm just going with what I have. But I think building the team, and so when you talk about an organization at our stage, team building is really important, and so is having something, a minimum viable product that you can put them in. So you have to build something, and then you have to recruit people, and then you have to keep them in there. And so I think those right the stage we're on now, I weight those a little more. But on the other hand, if it doesn't grow, if there's no learning and growth, like the infrastructure you're doing extra, or the tools that KROWN is doing, if that doesn't happen, then this thing just stops. So you can't discount that. But right now I put it a little more toward the front end, and I said my metric was having 3 solid teams. Is that right? I don't know. We could say 5, we could say 6, but 3 solid teams that means we have this going. So I just view that as my own priority, because we didn't have one any other place, is how do we get 3 teams working solidly in this thing so that we have that base to keep it going. Because the biggest danger when you start something new is things dying. So momentum is the most important thing in dealing with startup companies. If you lose momentum, then it dies because you don't have all these extra resources. So just
Well, Eric, just to dovetail on that, the reason I wanted to point out the sharing, right, was not to like self-promote or talk about what I did was, but when we talked about contributions, right, I didn't talk about that I had gotten the grant or got to the same the next level, just like Dwayne had done, right, and shared that on social media and with our Discord group and a whole bunch of other people, in terms of sharing and getting more people interested and so forth, through as that grant step, whatever you want to describe it as, being the mechanism for that, right? So I kind of downplayed that, and that's why I think you and Jason mentioned that you didn't really know that I didn't articulate clearly enough. That Dwayne and I had both made it to the same round, that we were in the same place, right? That you took it as I was asking Dwayne about how to do it in the next time, right? And obviously, if I'm asking for him how to do it in the next time, then I'm not sharing it now because there's nothing necessarily to share, right? But the fact that we did get to that next level did lead to sharing and so forth, right? So,
yeah, and to keep in mind, the way I looked at Dwayne's contribution, just as an example, is okay, here's a magnet to get people in, which is part of the front end, and then here's a thing that keeps people staying. Because he's giving those as rewards, so people want to come back. So I didn't look at what he did. I looked at the outcomes in terms of, sharing, recruiting, onboarding, retaining, and building this thing. And that's kind of how I break it up. What are people doing to do those things?
I think it's a good segue to do a spinner wheel. So let me just interject really quickly and share my screen.
While that's loading, I can say this is like you have an opportunity to do film review because this is recorded. You can see your own speech and take notes for yourself.
All right, guys. Left wheel, 1,000 trillium. Right wheel, 1 million KROWN. Let's go. All right. Okeki, you just got 1,000 trillium.
Hey, congratulations.
All right. 1 million KROWN coming up. Cone Man. Woo.
Good.
2 weeks in a row. Congrats, guys. I'll be sending that out right away after this meeting.
Thank you. Nicholas, how did you find it being your first ever time on one of the Fractally governance meetings? I know you tried joining before, but unfortunately we're a little bit late.
It was very, very educating and interesting for me. I learned a lot. Yeah. And I hope to learn more in meetings in the future.
Thank you very much for coming along. I'm glad you enjoyed it and had a good experience. I think since my first time coming to now, I've learned to value myself a little bit more, and as others were touching base on, to articulate what I've done a little bit better. At least I hope so. Fingers crossed for the future.
That's huge. As that's what really came up in our group too, was voting for yourself and when, and the dynamic of it all, as well as, of course, we've already touched on all the points, the subjectivity of values, and like self-assessment versus we only get such a short window to listen to other people. I know very well what I did, right? I was there for everything I did, but everything everyone else did, I have no idea what anyone else did. I only get to hear them. Maybe I know them from other meetings. Maybe I know them from past meetings in this group. And that all adds information. We've touched on that point, how there's a maturity to this dynamic. But I think that voting for yourself offers an opportunity for you to add more detail to your description. If you only get a few minutes to describe what you've done in the past week, and you vote for yourself, but nobody else votes for you, well, I'm curious to hear from the other group about what your thoughts were about that. Like, how do the others respond if you vote for yourself, but nobody else voted for you? Because I'm sure that that plays into like the maturity of the group, and that it will carry forward to next week too. But at the very minimum, it provides an opportunity for you to describe further what you've done in case you didn't quite hit the nail on the head in the first round, right?
Yeah, we didn't have any instances of people voting for themselves and no one voting for the person who voted for themselves. But we did have a few instances of split consensus where a person had voted for themselves, someone else had voted for them, because we only had 4 people in our group. We had the other 2 were voting different ways. So we ended up with twice split consensus and had to just go around the table once again and explain just in a few short sentences why we voted the way we did. And on that, we had people changing their vote based on some extra information that came to light, or some good reasoning why the person was voting for themselves. So I think, yeah, just going around the table once again is more than enough most times. But maybe in the future, once we start growing bigger and bigger, we're going to need some extra mechanics in place to facilitate past that.
Well said. So you guys went around the table again. Did it come out that somebody vote for themselves? I mean, you know, we can see it. It's transparent. But
yeah. I voted for myself, and David voted for himself. I voted for myself based on what I felt I'd done over the past week, and laying some groundwork, some foundations for what could be really interesting in the future. Whereas David was kind of voting for himself more on an experiment of he'd never done it before. So he was seeing what would happen if he did. And that's fine too. But in the end, votes were changed based on that information. So
right. I'm not surprised they were changed on that information, you know, because think about it. What a person does with their life always presents opportunity cost. For anything I do today, prevents me from the alternatives. Whatever I could have chosen a million different things to do with today, but ultimately I'll only go with one of them, and the rest of them are the theoretical opportunity cost embedded in that choice. And that people evaluate their priorities subjectively. I am doing what I think is most valuable, combined with what I think I'm most capable of. I mean, noted, right? There's an equilibrium to evaluate with how people make decisions, like within the barriers of what they're capable of, but also within that, what they think is most valuable, right? Instinctively, or perhaps in a disciplined way, one way or another, people have their reasons. This is one of the expressions I always use for myself when I'm trying to explain to myself, why are people doing all that? Sometimes it's just mind boggling. It's baffling. Like, why? Right. And what I tell myself is, it made sense to them. You know, people have their reasons. And that cuts both ways, right? For good and for bad. And that naturally we'd be inclined to think that, as Eric was saying, we have self-inclined bias. That the stuff that I did is, subjectively speaking, the most impactful thing there is to do. We can start with that as a starting assumption. That's where we're coming from.
Well, and confirmation bias plays a role in that, because there's this idea that if we say it, everyone will understand the impact of what that is. For example, the stuff Extra's doing is really complex. But if he just says, oh yeah, we meant this and combine that, I mean, there's this assumption that, oh yeah, that the impact of that is clear. Or like some of the stuff KROWN Man's doing, oh yeah, we did this with the drop, and some of us are going to go, okay. And so we all have that problem. Not only do we think what we do is valuable, part of that is because we understand the impact, but there's an assumption that everybody else will understand that too. So it's really hard to communicate the impacts of what we do has on other people and what we're trying to do. By the way, that's the number one problem. I was chief strategy officer for a performance marketing agency for 3 years, and I did corporate marketing and branding. That's the number one problem, is people would come in and say, oh, let me give this information. Everybody now will come running to us because they understand how that is. And it was really hard to shine the mirror back and say, yeah, no. I mean, we all did a campaign once, and we thought it was so clear, it was a no-brainer. We launched the campaign and hardly anybody was signing up for our product, even though it was so clear. We went to the same people the next day and we said, oh, we noticed this deal didn't work for you, so we've got an even better deal. We basically made them the same deal, but we gave them a coupon. So they had a physical, tangible thing of the value. Started selling like hotcakes. But the whole point is, all of us in a room, and we even brought people in before we launched this campaign. I mean, we were buying TV and radio stuff. We thought, of course, everybody must get this. Turned out they didn't. Oops. Fortunately, because it was digital, we were able to change it. We had their name right back the next day, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, they get it now.
Amazing what a little tweak will do. Did your group have any issues with consensus? Be interested to.
We only had one vote where the vote was split enough that we had to have a discussion, really. And it was a vote for level 4, where Nicholas, he goes by Nicholas, voted for me, and I voted for him, and Dwayne voted for Nicholas. So we were split 2-3 because Eric and Extra had both voted for me. So that actually was a pretty quick conversation too. We were able to define it on the sphere of impact. We described it as the bottom of the funnel and the top of the funnel, whereas Nicholas is playing the game and onboarding people to the game and engaging with people in a direct way. I participated in a podcast earlier in the week, which they described as top of the funnel, and then subjectively assigned a higher value to that contribution.
Well, it's wonderful to hear. Thank you.
And I wanted to reinforce Eric's point about tangibility. I have a story about a friend of mine who was in a band who made all their music available on iTunes, and they would share the link at their concert. They had a QR code poster. The link was right there in front of everybody. All you have to do is open the link and download the album, and you could buy the album on iTunes. And they thought they were gonna like strike it rich in the digital world of people downloading their music and sharing it. And well, I mean, they got there, but it took a while because at first nobody followed the link. What they ended up doing is putting their album on a USB and or on a card and handing people a card, selling people a card at the concert. Because someone shows up at the concert, they got $10 cash in their pocket. And it's like, yeah, here's the album. I'll take the cash. And we sold the album, right? If somebody goes to the concert and they see the URL address on a poster, they're like, yeah, I'll follow up on that. Then I'll follow up on that. You know, you put something tangible in their hand and it's like, yep, that's real now.
Yeah, that works for services all the time. We do that marketing all the time. You know, here's a card, here's a thing, here's a replica of what you're gonna get. You know, I remember I gave a cruise once and I gave a Christmas ornament of a cruise ship. You know, because you can touch that.
It's amazing what a piece of cardboard will do to change your perception as well.
Well,
Well-
just think of the military, why they give out medals. Napoleon said, when I figured out that people would die for a piece of ribbon, it really changed my way of thinking.
I mean, we found that with my dad's been doing it for like 50 years now, of like dropping a piece of silver into somebody's hand. You know, Dwayne, I know you've seen me do it, a few times. And once you and my dad calls it the drop, because you can't hand it to them. You have to ask them to put their hand out and then drop it into their hand so they can feel the weight of it and so forth. And like, as soon as they start fingering a piece of, like, especially a 1 ounce, maybe fingering isn't the right word, when they start handling a 1 ounce silver coin, it becomes really more tangible to them, especially in the crypto world, right? Where people maybe they don't interact with coins, the same way that like maybe our parents' generation did, or generations before us, where it was much more tangible, right? And so like, to the point about a piece of cardboard, absolutely, right? But like, and then a piece of silver works for us, right? So it's having that kind of, tangibility, I guess is maybe the best way of putting it, because it does make it a lot more, and maybe this is more, like I said, more related to the crypto people, right? Who don't have any tangibility to their money and so forth, right? And so having an actual like thing in their hand, they're like, oh, this is real, right? And like for us, it's lended a lot of credibility into people who like didn't believe us, and then they're like, oh, there's a real coin here, and we're like, yeah, like that's the whole point. So I don't think that can be lost, even if it's just a piece of cardboard, right? Because we live in such a digital, detached, reality in most instances.
Yeah, another way to describe it is that it's a minority of the human population that is satisfied with just the abstract. That we know what it is intellectually, right? We don't need to have a physical sensation of it existing in order to understand it completely, right? The bulk of the normal curve for most people, like the level of understanding requires that. I think that's, I mean, I'd even lump myself in that category where I'm not fully satisfied with the concept of it unless I've observed it. So in order, like a technology of money needs universal acceptance. It's very difficult. And Extra actually was the one who reinforced that requirement in my mind as clearly or more clearly than anybody in our discussion about like just technologies of money. And it came up in the podcast on Monday too. So I have a whole like whirlwind of notes about new notes about sanctions and regulations regarding technologies of money. I've come to a thesis almost that money fundamentally is regulation and the technology is superfluous. What we do is chosen money. What we do is we compete with the quality of the technology of money. and there's an open competition for the quality of the technology of money that people go to. And though at the same time, money officially everywhere is its regulation. There's almost nothing else to it except its regulation. They choose their technology. They have their technologies of choice that they employ for the utility of money in the economy. And they try to make counterfeit difficult, right? And they try to keep the cost of the mint managed well, although that's an open question. But to achieve universal adoption, to achieve universal acceptance of anything, I believe strongly you're going to need a physical element to reach people. That really gets away from where we're at with Fractally, though. But does Fractally maybe have a physical dimension that we can give ribbons out or something? We had once talked about minting an NFT and having a provably unique physical replica in existence. And I had talked about diamond dusting and other methods to uniquely identify a physical artifact. I mean, you can even do it with orgonite. If you guys are familiar with what orgonite is, it's illegal to sell on the internet because people are not allowed to believe in magic. But orgonite is a magical energy transformation conducted by a quartz stone that is encased in the shavings of conductive metals. So shop shavings of aluminum and silver or gold or copper in a mix, packed around the quartz and then held together in an epoxy. And it's supposed to be like a healing crystal, right? So of course the medical establishment thought that was hokum because people are buying these healing crystals of rose quartz or amethyst or some other tiger's eye quartz or something like that. And people amplify the crystals with the metals. But okay, so that aside, now that I described what orgonite is and why the medical establishment has banned it from the internet, you can use that for perfect randomization too. You can use shop scrap metal because the burrs at a small level magnified are random, like reliably random. The way they scatter in an epoxy is beyond you cannot reproduce that realistically. So those are methods that we can use to attach the same degree of uniqueness that an NFT enjoys to something like a painting or a sculpture or a t-shirt or anything that we want to instill rarity to as a collector's item. And now that we're way out in left field, please somebody get us back on track.
Well, no, I think what you've said there is interesting. Reading between the lines on it is like, so we're fractal governance. We can fractionalize anything, be it a piece of artwork in ownership form. We could fractionalize. So one thing that came up recently was when Extra was talking about LD2 and selling the silver via the NFTs. Essentially, you can split a bar of silver up fractionally into NFTs or other coins and then redeem them for something in the real world if you get enough of them. So let's say that you need 100 NFTs to make a bar of silver. And at the end of it, you turn all those in and you get that bar of silver in your hand sent to your address. I mean, that's something that you could do. I don't know if anyone else has thoughts on that sort of thing, but that's been playing on my mind a huge amount since that came up, because I think it's really interesting how much you could split something up and make a progressive reward structure.
Well,
I just
shape
posted.
silver
Sorry, I just posted something that was called KROWN, and you're talking about the individuality, something that's very specific, and they're using a NFT chip in their token to kind of give those properties. It's kind of interesting.
There was an idea floated about making the wrappers of like candy bars or chocolate bars or granola bars or something maybe contain the metal, maybe contain a sliver or a small amount of silver in them. We had thought of it as a recycling program, actually, because there's a lot to know about silver. One of the things is, in the world of mineral extraction, silver is present in almost every type of extraction. Whether a mining operation, almost no matter what a mining operation is trying to mine, you know how they're all targeting like something like cobalt or nickel or something. Almost no matter what, there's some silver there. It's considered a byproduct of almost all mining operations, and it's abundant. I mean, silver is relatively abundant, and it's very good. It's got very good food specific utilities. The reason for silverware, some are aware, the reason for silverware is because of the antimicrobial effect of silver. The way that silver is a little bit too volatile for microbial life. It's too conductive, and it's conducting a subtle charge that is preventative to bacterial growth and things like that. And so for food, silver actually makes really good sense as a packaging item. You can make like a small amount of the component of the alloy being silver.
That's how Dwayne
and maybe we
met.
could do like Wonka, like a Willy Wonka's silver bar.
So sorry to interrupt, but that's how Dwayne and I met. Dwayne was talking about doing it we were on a rooftop in San Francisco, and Dwayne was talking about doing it with somebody, and I was on the rooftop as well. And that's what spurred my entire involvement that has now evolved all these years later now, Dwayne. I'm sure you remember that too.
You bet. It was the Silver Lining Project, where we had a vendor that had hundreds of millions of aluminum packages to keep in the fresh smell and scent of blunt wraps. And we were looking at a waste problem. And it's interesting that different brands think of their waste differently. There was a struggle within this company. Part of them wanted us to find a solution where people kept their waste, that it was somewhat valuable, so they weren't throwing away that aluminum package. But the C-level people in the company looked at waste as free advertisements. So they looked at their aluminum package littering the ground, and someone's kicking it as a secondary market for people to recognize that brand. So they were proud of the waste they left behind because it still gave brand recognition, even if it was littering a street. But yeah, that's exactly how we met, was the Silver Lining, where your packaging, instead of aluminum, would have a serial number on that you get an online gift to give us feedback. And you would be compelled to keep that silver packaging because it had some value. And we knew we were brilliant. We just missed some timings, but but yeah, that's exactly the waste streams. Recycling is not enough. If you can get your consumer to keep your waste because it's cool enough or has some value, we can change a lot. I was going to mention two things too, just before I forget. KROWN, we do have, we spoke about some of the tools that we can bring to larger community, and I haven't forgot about the drop tool. And today I have a meeting with Jordan. So Jordan's we primed him a little bit, and he's come to the first stage of development. So next week I'll give a better update on where that tool's at, what we need to get the tool completed, and the options maybe of having that be part of this Fractally group, where we can promote this group and bring people over to experience fractal governance. And maybe this would be something of value that people would use, that we can kind of drift them into this group as well. And then just the second note is more on the Fractally blockchain that's going to be launched soon. Is the second thing I want to do is that this work that we're doing, just to make sure that we're getting our respect and kind of getting, kind of pre-mining that blockchain by participating in fractal governance. I see one of the other fractals is called EOS on Eden fractal, and they're starting to bring some of the points that they get in the Go Fractally Genesis meeting on Saturdays into their Fractally team. And it's kind of this go-between. They're kind of treating it almost as a group. So, I know, Eric, you joined that team. I will ask them that. I think if we announce that we are part of the Alien Worlds Fractal, that if we participate in the Go Fractally team, our points get mirrored and start to get calculated in their calculation as well. So kind of two things going on. They're kind of treating us as like a subgroup, I believe, more like a team within Go Fractally. And anything that we get, points or levels for individually, we bring them back to that calculation. But I'll just make sure that we specify, because this is kind of a little bit of an advantage that most don't have, is being able to participate in these new fractals. And I just want to see and report back to you guys, what does that get us once their chain is launched. So yeah.
Well, thank you. One of the points that I brought up in our group was I'd actually met with the developer this week, talking about the feasibility of a drop tool, and we had a really long, in-depth conversation about how that would look and the sort of cost behind it. So maybe I can bring that forward to you at some point this week or next week, and we merge them all together to create something really amazing.
Yeah, the ideal, it's more about people's time and if they're excited about developing. So if you've got someone interested, and maybe we can just have a joint meeting with Jordan, feel him out and see what he's done, see what his time constraints are. And ideally put a few people together. That would be fantastic.
Cool. I'm going to have to love and leave you all for now.
Me too.
Unfortunately, but I shall see you next Thursday, if not before.
Awesome. Thanks as much as always, Co-Man. And Eric, you got to take off too?
Yep.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you.
Thanks,
See you
everyone.
in the
Thanks, guys.
metaverse.
See you guys later.
Awesome stuff.